I was thinking, what makes Filipinos happy? Since I read the book and since the last 2-3 weeks, and I thought maybe chocolates. I thought if not chocolates, maybe crispy pata. Or maybe crispy pata dipped in chocolate during Christmas. That would be nice. Or karaoke. So I was thinking maybe or maybe I thought photo ops. Di ba Pinoy's la, anytime picture muna, no? Have you seen that? I mean, you can do anything, any sad occasion, anything. Picture muna, no? Picture tayo. Isang wacky, isang straight, no? No matter what the occasion is, basta picture tayo. This is true, RD, I kid you not. When Sarah Lee brought John Maxwell in and she was going to take him to Vietnam, and she said, Raju, you know what? In Vietnam, we had to show everything John Maxwell was going to talk about to the Vietnam government so that they would let him in. But in the Philippines, when we went to DTI, all they said is picture muna. With John Maxwell, approved na. So anyway, thus, conclusion of this journey of Eric Weiner is happiness has multiple perspectives. Diba? Chocolate, singing, dancing, tolerance, law, lotto, all of this makes happy. Now the question is, if these are the causes, these are the multiple perspectives on happiness across the world, no? Let's try and understand what happiness is and what causes unhappiness. What happiness is, according to the dictionary, is an oscillation of your emotions between content and joy. Yeah? Not between contentment and joy, not content. Contentment and joy. Not between contentment and sadness. Right? So it's here. It oscillates to the right. That means every time you oscillate to the right, masaya ka. No? That's the definition. And the other definition, which I think is right, is perspectives, like Eric Weiner. No? Now, the other question would arise is, then what makes people so unhappy? Have you thought about it? What makes you unhappy, folks? Random. Man in blue shirt, what makes you unhappy? Right in the center, big guy. What makes you unhappy? Lady in red, what makes you unhappy? Being called to answer a question? Yeah? What makes you unhappy? Huh? Random. Sorry? Losing? Talo. That's correct. Okay. What makes people unhappy is very simple. If you are aware, even just casually, about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Physical needs, right? Food, water, and air. Mental needs, safety and security. And a little guarantee about the future. Emotional needs, friends, cousins, love, kissing, hugging, etc. Spiritual needs, and then self-actualization, right? Or, of course, in the world that we live in, the Philippines, salvation. Diba? Yan ang pinakataas, no? So, happiness is when you climb up that pyramid. Unhappiness comes about every time you take a plunge down those levels. If your physical needs are not being fulfilled, you don't have lunch, you don't get chocolate, you don't get crispy pata, you don't get paid, you don't get commission, right? You don't get clothing, shoes, bicycle, jeepney, etc. You're unhappy, right? Then when you learn to go over that, you need mental needs, security, safety in the bank, safety at work, roof over the head, right? Every time you take a plunge down those levels, you become unhappy. Correct? No? So that is where unhappiness comes about. That's number one. The number two cause of unhappiness. The second thing is living in the past. Carrying unnecessary baggage from the past. That means, back in 1984, RD was not nice to me. I hate that guy. Right? Or back in 1997, my wife slapped me really hard, and I really don't like my wife for having done that. Or 1999, my brother did this to me, or my colleague did that to me, or my manager spoke to me. We carry that baggage, that grudge. Sometimes we carry guilt from the past, and we can't let go. Number two cause of unhappiness. The third cause of unhappiness comes from the world of Scott Friedman. It's called keeping up with the Joneses. Keeping up with the Joneses. That means My happiness is dependent upon how happy Boris is. If I feel that he's happier than me, I become unhappy. Do you realize? If I feel that his seminar has more participants than mine, I become unhappy. Right? If he has a shinier and a bigger red car than mine, I become unhappy. So the researchers, one of them researchers, a guy called Daniel Gilbert, what they asked the question in that research was that to people, they said, would you be happy getting a $75,000 salary in a company where everyone earns $60,000 per annum? Or would you be happy making $90,000 per annum where everyone else makes $100,000 per annum? You know what people chose? A majority, $75,000. Doesn't make sense, right? But people measure their happiness. Somebody asked me, how do you measure happiness? You measure happiness by the fact, how much is he earning? So 3 causes of unhappiness globally. I'm not talking of just at work. Number 1 is the fact that you slide down the pyramid in reality. Number 2 is you live in the past. Number 3, you compare yourself to somebody else. Does that make sense? Say yes. Say yes, so I know that you're guessing. Guessing, okay, very good. Now, great question. The most important question is, how do we consistently climb up the Maslow's pyramid? How do we constantly oscillate to the right? Is that a good question? Is that a question on your mind? Do you have your own strategy? How many people have a strategy for happiness? Chocolate, chips, movies, dancing, karaoke, right? Anything, right? Yeah? You have your own formula for happiness. A new car every 6 months, right? If you're single, a new girlfriend every 1 year. Payday on, no? Variety is the spice of life. So, my conclusions, my recommendations for you, and these come from, of course, Daniel Gilbert, a researcher from the School of Positive Thinking, and Brian in the back is going to talk about it, from the School of Appreciative Inquiry, and a little bit from neuroscience. So here are my 5 suggestions. And I realize I haven't been clicking the PowerPoint, so that's why you look lost. I just realized I've been so absorbed. So what is happiness? Let's go. That's a nice review. Isn't that lovely? Look at you laughing at me. That means you're comparing your happiness in perspective to mine. I'm unhappy, you feel happy. That's why you were lost. There you go. There you go. Box of chocolates. That's a joke. Fine. Yeah, good. Now you go. That's why people look lost. I was wondering what happened to people. There you go. So how individuals can do happy? When I say do happy, somebody answered a while ago, you can choose happiness, no? So let's see how, these are my recommendations. Number 1, okay, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to take them one by one very quickly with examples, okay? And with some kind of a substantiation by what point. Here we go. Number 1, how do you do unhappy? Accept and appreciate changing realities and multiple realities. This comes from the School of Appreciative Inquiry. Though we all talk about the fact, the Gandhi quote, change is a constant thing. Yeah? Don't we all say that? Change is constant. Change is the only thing that is constant. No? We don't really realize what we mean. We think about change outside of us. We think of change as in like technology, or maybe in the government, or maybe in fashion. But we don't think of change which happens every single second, outside and inside of us. Outside and inside of us. Change happens inside of us in a flash of a second. I'm sitting there feeling unhappy, and then I realize I haven't been clicking the PowerPoint. I become happy. Are you with me? It happens in a flash of a second, and it happens again and again. And given the fact, somebody's going to talk about your uniqueness. Given the facts, I heard some preachers say there are 7 billion people across the world, and every single individual has a different DNA. Ibig sabihin, iba ang perspective niya palagi. No matter whether you come from the same school, same background, same barangay, you still have a different perspective towards happiness, towards success, towards excellence, towards performance, towards relationship. Yeah? And this is constantly changing. We talk about it, and the power lies that once we understand this in depth, that my happiness can change now, or I can become unhappy right away. It can change so fast. And when we meet people, when we come to level 3 of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, relationships, sometimes the person across me, my spouse, my friend, my brother, my colleague, my manager, even his perspectives change every single second. That's a powerful realization. And the way to happiness is, number one, to know this, to appreciate this, and to respect it. Does it make sense to you? This is one of the principles of appreciative inquiry. I do that, and I'm going to be talking about that a lot every now and then. But does that make sense to you? Does that empower you to recognize that things will change now, right here in front of my face, even though I don't wish for them to change? Yeah? And sometimes we go on stubbornly, hoping it won't happen, hoping things won't change, they'll be steady. And the worst thing a person can tell somebody else, remember, in the olden days we used to say, give somebody a birthday card and say, please don't go changing, No, that's the wrong thing to say, because change happens, right? So realize that. So that's number one realization. Number two, recognize and respect that in every human situation, in every human system, a small team, a group of people, this little workshop here, there is always something inside that system, a group, a team of 5. Something always works. A family, a broken family. How many of you saw Mrs. Doubtfire? Seen Mrs. Doubtfire? Remember what she says at the end? When she's closing the show on TV, doing dinosaurs and stuff. When I say she, I mean he. Yeah? Or when I say he, I mean she. She says that families are different. There are families with a single parent. There are families who are split apart. There are families who live apart. And yet they can be happy. So a family that is broken, you might think that's an unhappy family. No. There is something powerful inside that family. Something alive, something buhay, something worth valuing. No? In 2005, I drink a lot of water, by the way. Newsweek did an article on the brain. And amazing, a little article, and I love it. It said that inside a human brain, which Scott showed you a picture of, which is the size 3.5 pounds. Did this go forward by itself this time? It's got a mind of its own. I'm right. Yeah? In that 3.5 pound of meat, of giniling, no? Or, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Cheche bareche, or... What's the thing when you chop up fish? Escabeche? No, not... No. No, come on. Like the pig's ears, so you chop them up and you put cebu. Sisig, no, the other one, the one with fish. In Spanish, it's called cerviches. Yeah? Bangus sisig. Okay. 3.5 pounds of bangus, okay? Inside your head, gray matter, left brain, right brain, mid-brain, etc. I like your participation, by the way. You're so happy to offer me sisig. Food kasi. So here we go. Now, inside that brain, when they did research, they said there is a cluster of neurons. This specific bunch of neurons could be 5,000 or 10,000. Yeah? Because inside a human brain, there are 100 billion neurons. So this cluster of neurons is the divinity-seeking set of neurons. What did it mean? It meant that, we talk about programming, we talk about mindsets, we talk about breeding, religion, culture, etc. No? It said that if a human being was born and raised in a jungle or a desert with no contact with any culture, with no contact with any other human being like Tarzan or Mowgli the Jungle Boy, and he was surrounded by gorillas and wolves, etc., or cats and tigers, or in our case, tarsiers in Bicol, no? If he was surrounded by animals and birds and bees, this human being, as he would mature, as he would grow up on go up on Maslow's hierarchy of needs without realizing, of course, that he's going up on the pyramid of Maslow, he would ask that question. He would ask that question of himself, even though if he didn't know Tagalog, he would say, "Sino ako? Saan ako galing? Saan ako pupunta? Anong purpose ng buhay ko?" Would you imagine that? That means that this cluster of neurons would always be looking to achieve salvation without being bred and trained for it. Thus, conclusion, when you see a person, when you regard or withhold a person, you must, to be happy, to have a great relationship with that person, must believe that there is a spark of divinity and a spark of goodness in that person, wanting to grow. This is a good coaching principle. If you want to develop people, you want to believe that they can. Are you with me, folks? Does that make sense? Yeah? Number 3, relive the positives of your life and relieve the negatives of your life. Since change is constant, since unhappiness and happiness is gonna come crashing at you, yeah, you will gather that information. You will be impacted by it. But if you store the wrong things in your lifetime, your present and your future will be wrong. Are you with me? Thus, everything that has come to you from your future into your now and has gone back into your past, if you go back into your past and bring back the negatives into your present will be lousy. If you go back into your past and bring back the wonderful things that happened to you, place them into your present, your future will become glorious and bright. Make sense? So, what's the practice? The practice is tell stories of your past which made you happy. Tell stories of your success. Repeat them. You know, sometimes when we have a little challenge in life, we like to talk to people. It's called therapy. Diba? But if you do therapy and you keep repeating the therapy, your sickness multiplies. You do it once, you do it twice until you feel a bit relieved. Then go on, bring back the better portions of your life into your present and build your future. You've heard of the story of this Red Indian chief who was talking to a Red Indian brave, and he was talking about these two wolves inside his belly. The beast of unhappiness and the beast of goodness. The one that you feed is the one that grows. Yeah? So what do? You feed the good from the past. So, and let me talk about the law of recency. Now, if you have unhappy past, if you have unhappy moments, some things that you grudge, some things that you envy, some things that you're guilty about, something that don't agree with you, what you need to do is add on good, positive experiences post that plunge down Maslow's pyramid. You need to create good ones such that you average out into a positive. Law of recency. Thus, if you have a bad experience, quickly create good experiences so that your recent memory will be a pleasant one. Does that make sense? It's called the law of recency, the law of impact, how people remember stuff. Okay, am I going good for you? Clarity? Making sense? Smile? That would be a measure of your happiness. Smile? Wave to me. Say hello, po. I'm allowed to be called Po because I'm gray-haired, no? I'm not FPJ. Po. Okay. Here's the one. Here's a good one. Practice. One day in Fort Bonifacio, I was taking a walk, and I happened to see this priest, an army priest. And man, he was fire and brimstone. Really powerful little young man. And he was speaking to his brethren. And I'm a public speaking coach, so I love it when people talk, right, on stage. So I went up and I listened to him, and there were about 200 people. And he was saying, if you want to build your muscles, what do? Exercise them. If you want to build your patience, what do? Exercise your patience. If you want to build happiness, what do? Exercise happiness. practice happiness, no? So the researcher who does work on happiness, a guy called Richard Davidson, Professor Richard Davidson, I can't remember the university he represents, but for the last 35 years, he's been studying happiness and neuroscience. One of his favorite subjects is the Dalai Lama, the monks, because the monks seemingly seem happier than the rest of the world. You see them, they're wearing orange, they're bold, and they're always happy, no? So he was impacted by the Dalai Lama's presentation one day, and for 35 years he's been putting electrical nodes on the heads of monks and putting them into MRI machines to find out what is right with them, what works for them, no? And one of his best subject matter is a guy called Matthew Ricard, who's a monk, and he's French. That's why his name is so difficult for me to pronounce, being a Bombay, no? Matthew Ricard, I don't know what that means. So anyway, so one of his journeys, one of his experiments led him to Dalai Lama, again, one more time, and he said, Dalai Lama, Your Highness. I don't know, what do you call him? You call him Highness? Your Holiness, Your Holiness. He said, Your Holiness. The question he asked him was, Your Holiness, in all your lifetime, even though you were exiled from Tibet or Bhutan and you were sent to China and to Bombay and you met Raju there, how was it to meet Raju? No, he didn't meet me. I'm kidding you. He said, Your Holiness, what has been your happiest moment? Long pause, long pause, a very long, melodramatic, meditational pause. And His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, says, in his very typical way, he says, I think right now. The answer to your question, what has been your happiest moment? And His Holiness says, I think right now. And so Professor Richard Davidson, he said, man, that's impressive. Very nice of you, Mr. Dalai Lama, to say, I think right now. But the science behind, the semantics behind it is, I think right now. I think right now. But isn't happiness an emotion, a feeling? Why would you think about it? And His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, one of the happiest persons in the world, thinks about happiness. Thus, the neuroscientist who was researching this went back to his brain studies, and he realized that though happiness, emotions lie in the midbrain, the emotional brain, the key, the switch that Scott was talking about, lies in the left prefrontal cortex. Right here, yung thinking brain. If you want to know if you're happy, where do you go? You don't go in, that's where you're happy or unhappy. But if you want to know, if you want to correct that, the green switch or the red switch is here. Thus, happiness can be a logical decision. Thus, people say, choose happiness. Ibig sabihin, when you say choose happiness, kaya yan. Because it's here. If you can do 2 plus 2 equal 4, 9 minus 7, negative 2, you can do happiness here. Yeah? That means from here, you can control your inner brain. This is the navigator, that's the engine. So the engine can be moved by the driver over here. So the fourth step is choose happiness. And when I say choose, I mean it. How am I doing for time? How am I doing for time, Kali? 10 more to go. Last one. Physiology leads psychology. Psychology needs spirituality, etc., all the way up on Maslow's pyramid of needs. No? What does it mean? Physiology leads psychology. I do that in my workshops on mind mapping. A while ago, we stood up and we went, hee hee hee, ha ha ha. It was stupid. But realize this, that right when you finish doing it, or right after you sat down, for a few moments, your happiness index went up a bit. Thus, if you're emotionally unsettled, you need to do something physically satisfying. Does that make sense? The Maslow's pyramid, you need to go up all the time, but if you're unsettled in your spiritual section, you need to come down and work on your emotions. If you're emotionally unsettled, you need to come down and work on your mental state. If your mental state, as if I don't have money for tomorrow, as if I don't have a roof tomorrow, I don't have an insurance plan for tomorrow, I'm mentally, I don't like to use the word unstable, that would be crazy, unstable in my mental state, I need to do something physical. Kaya, every time we are a little bit concerned, a little bit stressed, what do? Go for a walk, light a cigarette, take a drink, eat chocolate. These are all physical things. So if you realize that if you're spiritually not well, check if you're happy inside. If you're not happy inside, find out if you're secure. If you're not secure, do something physically again and again. Yeah? Now, of course, some people here, like Boris, would say, Raju, what if I'm physically unsettled? What do? Check the internet. Just kidding. Okay, good. So those are the 5 steps. What are the 5 steps? Number 1, quickly. Accept a changing world. Recognize that there is something divine in this guy called Boris. No? Number 3. What is the number 3? Sorry? 1. What is it? Yeah, okay, let go of the baggage. Number 4. Think, therefore I'm happy. Number 5, do something about it physical. Now your question would be, Raju, what about, that's fine for me, it might work for me, I will employ that. How about if I want to change it for other people, a group of 10, a group of 20, or this workshop? 3 pretty quick principles. In fact, there's been a lot of study on engagement by Gallup, and some of you might be using the 12-question assessment, or the work by Daniel Pink, on Drive, or by Delivering Happiness, Zappos.com, Tony Hsieh. They have a lot of recommendations how to keep your teams happy. Here's my recommendations, pretty quick ones, based and drawn from the School of Appreciative Inquiry. Number 1. So here's the number 1. Open spaces. Open spaces, that means when you when you recruit people, you bring them into your Zappos team. You recruit people for their innate talent, for their past experiences, for their qualifications, for them being different or for them being very good in their little field, right? You get them in. What do? We put on a Barney uniform on them and tell them to be like salt and light. All of you behave like salt and light. No, we want variety. We want them to be themselves. We want them to be one of those 7 billion DNAs. So thus, add a creative input, let them be themselves. Yeah? Give them the vision, give them the mission, connect them to the top, tell them what you want, but give them that space. Give them physical space if they're in manufacturing, give them creative space if they are not in manufacturing. Let them be them for a while. Yeah? Let them be them. Let us not convert them into San Miguel or Ayala's or what have you or Zappos. Let them be. So give them the space. 1. It's also drawn from the open space technology of a guy called Harrison Owen. We use that in training and coaching and OD. Number 2, cultivate learning addiction or environment. We all know what learning organizations are. Systems thinking, Peter Senge's 4th principle, everything is a learning organization. But I go to companies, I work with them, and we talk about what do you need to grow? What do you need to be more productive? What do you need to be more engaging? They all say, seminars, training. Hey, it doesn't help, You've got to create a learning addiction. Sure, you put your library, sure you have your talks, etc. You have your gimmicks and events. You've got to create a learning addiction. That means people must want to learn. They must hunger for it just as they hunger for chocolate and Christmas. Does that make sense? Now you will say, Raju, what's the technique for that? What is the method to make them learning addicts? Send them to our workshops at Salt and Light. We teach mind mapping. Yeah. So you can brainstorm about that, but that's one of the recommendations. Number 3 is wag the dog. I need 5 minutes more. Kali can be 5 minutes extra. Yeah. Are you good so far? The last recommendation: wag the dog. Wag the dog. That's him. You all know what the phrase means, of course. Especially people in advertising and PR. They know what wag the dog means, no? That's my dog. His name's Shadow. He's a black Labrador. My son gave me that dog for Christmas 2011. He's very cute. He's so sweet. He's super loving. He needs attention all the time. He's palaging KSP. Palaging KSP. You know, he's a very needy dog. Every time I go home, he jumps on me. Lick, 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 lick. You know? 90% of the time, this dog, my dog Shadow, is happy. 10% of the time, a Labrador is unhappy. That means he sits in the corner or sometimes leans his body against the wall and looks at me like that dolefully. Pare, he says, Daddy, anong bagong balita sa buhay natin? Anong gimmick, pare? That's what he does, no? So I've been thinking, I said, this guy's happier than me all the time. He wants to play ball, play frisbee, take a bottle and run, you know. So and when he's happy, his tail is wagging all the time. Pa, 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 pa. All the time, he's knocking stuff from the table, in the kitchen, etc., banging me, you know. So I was thinking, when he's unhappy, can I grab his tail and shake it? Will that make him happy? I realize it doesn't. It doesn't. He snaps at me when I grab his tail, try to make him happy, you know. So ibig sabihin, animals cannot react to the effect to create the cause. But human beings can. That means if I tickle one of these two gentlemen, they're bound to giggle, right? If I tickle them a lot, they're bound to laugh. You with me? So wag the dog means force happiness into a system, into an organization, either through games, through sessions, through contests, or through what have you, or every single thing that Mr. Scott Friedman recommended. Try it. You might think, hey, that's such, top of the head recommendation, but it does work in the long run. People become happy if you create happiness, even artificial one, because happiness can be synthesized by human beings, not by animals. Does that make sense? Fine. Those are the three recommendations, and the question is now, who takes the initiative? Who drives this higher happiness into higher engagement, into higher productivity? Who does it? Who's responsible for it? Who? Say that loudly. Who? The CEO, the board of directors, not us, sila. No? The answer is us. The answer is you. The answer is I, me. No? You agree with me if I say I, right? It's me. I'm responsible to make this class happy. Am I not? Otherwise, she's not going to sell my seminars. Otherwise, you're not going to come to my seminars, right? So I'm responsible. That means everyone who knows, understands, has an inkling to a solution into the future, that person is responsible. It doesn't have to be a person at the top. It can be anyone. It can be anyone. You've been into this class, you listen to Scott, you're going to listen to 5 more people, you become responsible starting now. Yeah? Now, am I done? Yeah? Now, your question might be, Raju, how about those 2 more techniques on laughing? You said 5. There's 2 more. I said 7, remember? 7 nerve centers, no? Do you want to know where they are? You want to try them on to see if the dog wags? Yeah? But before I do that, let me close this very quickly. Since you all agree, say I'm responsible for happiness in my company. Say that, come on. I'm responsible for the happiness in my family, in my barangay, in my barkada, everywhere. No? Now, barangay also. In my country. In my country. Now, I want to end my little discussion, if it makes sense for you, with a little story from the book of Daniel Goleman, Primal Leadership. I love that book. That's what made me write that book, The Heart of Humor. I took a little piece from Daniel Goleman's work on primal leadership, and I wrote the book based on that. In that, he shares a story about twins born to a mother. And as the twins were presented to the mother beheld those twins in the hospital, and she looked at one, and she said, "This guy looks like me." And she looked at the other one and she said, "This dude looks like my hubby. This one, the one who looks like me, is a good boy. He's a productive boy. This boy who looks like my husband is a naughty boy. He's a consumer. This is a producer, that's a consumer." That's the thought that went into her mind on day one, glance one, when she saw the twins that were brought to her. Post that, of course, the kids grew up, they wore the same clothes, they had names like Noah and Nolan, no? They went to the same school, they were brought up in the same barangay, they went to same Boris's class on leadership, all through and through they got everything same chocolate cake, same chips, same crispy pata dipped in chocolate on Christmas, same everything. Except, every time the mom used to talk to them, look at them, she used to see herself, she used to see her naughty hubby. The researchers from the book, they followed these twins into their adulthood, into their 30s and 40s. The guy who she thought looked like her grew up to be a happy, well-balanced, successful human being. Happily married. No divorce, no problems, no drugs, nothing. The guy who she thought was naughty, like her husband, failed in math, failed in science, failed in geography, many girlfriends, became gay, turned normal again, no? The point is that whenever we want to drive change into happiness for somebody else, no? Whenever we want to drive change for somebody else, it's not a question of systems and structures. It's not a question of training. It's not a question of behavior and attitude. It's beyond that. It's about a belief system. It's about a deep-hearted, true, authentic desire to change something outside of us. And the outside of us, our team, our companies, know it, that this guy wants to create real good change in us. And we follow. And then that person becomes a leader. Does that make sense? So on that note, my time's up. Mabuhay. Good afternoon. Hallelujah. God bless you into your happiness, journeys.
Thank you so much, Raju.